Now we're blocking a wide defender. We have to take the footwork appropriate to get our body in line. And just like when we're blocking a guy that's tighter to us, like a tight shade on the base block, we have to do the same kind of thing. We're going to align our hips. It's real important. Again, we're going to get away from that idea that my hat placement has to be in a certain location. I've heard coaches say, hat placement is right here. I'm like, well, if I put my hat in his chest, a good player is throwing me on the ground. I want to place my hands on that chest, but I want to do it with force driven by the hips. So how we're going to get there is the question. We're going to take a brace step. Our brace step is really our angle step that's going to put us in alignment so our hips can then uncoil, and it defines the track or the course that we want to take to get there. We're going to squeeze all the air out between you and him, but we're going to do it with great control of the body, so we're in a position, just like we talked about with the principles of contact, where we engage with feet behind, hands in front, uncoil the hips, so we're in a great position to then not only push the guy vertically, but to prevent him from coming across the top, compressing the hole. But one of the best ways to create movement in a hole, in the sense that we're trying to define a running lane, is lateral. It's a big deal. We want to make sure we can get that running lane wide. To do that, our brace step is critical. And our brace step, if you watch the tight alignment video we put out there, it's really the same concept here in terms of how we find our brace angle. Finding our brace angle is the key to success here, because it's going to allow us to put ourselves in position to block the defender based on his alignment. Our brace angle will change based on the width of the defender. Okay? Starting from my stance, I've got a stagger. Let's say I'm a left tackle, it could be a tight end. Let's say I'm a left tackle and I'm working against a wide nine rusher, okay, or defensive end. And now I got to keep this guy inside out. I can't allow him to push me back or penetrate. So starting from my stance, remember we want to put weight on our inside foot, okay? We don't want to be even with our weight distribution because we're loading off of that inside foot, and on the snap we want to be sudden. I want to be sudden, boom, I want to take that brace step, and I want to get online so I can go attack this guy quickly and effectively. So when we're loading that inside foot, you can kind of see here, you can see I'm rolling my instep in a little bit. I don't want to be on the edge of my foot. That's the worst thing you can do. Totally inefficient. That requires me to move to my left, draw my knee in, and then move. So let's get that straight before we even get out of our stance. All right? From this position, I got my stagger foot, okay, is the foot that's behind. I'm on the left side of this line of scrimmage. We're going to remember find that brace angle by putting our hands together. Remember, this is like our compass, because remember, we're not talking about hat placement anymore. I'm not talking about opening, firing out, and putting my face in this guy's interior pad, which was never going to happen anyway. But if I try that, that's where I'm getting pulled. So really, what we're really mostly trying to emphasize is hip alignment. So that's what the brace step will do. And finding that appropriate brace angle is extremely critical. So to do that, we're going to start with our hands in front in the we're in the 2-point coil position with our hands in guard, hands together. Remember, our hands kind of represent like a compass or a scope. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a brace step that's going to align our hands and our hips, our fingertips and our hips, in line with the defender's inside ear. That is the angle we're looking for. To do so, we have to gain some depth and gain width with that brace step in order to align our hips in position that we want, which is, again, the inside ear. So the thing that we're trying to accomplish here is we're not trying to step underneath our toe. We can't do that. You'll see players do that. They'll be quick to take a step here, and that's followed by a long second step. We're out of control, inefficient. We want to close space as quickly as we can, but we want to do that with great control. That puts us in position to deal with this guy no matter what he does. So in our brace step, we got our loaded, we've loaded our inside foot, hands are together, and now I'm just going to practice finding my brace angle, okay? Now notice, my brace angle is going to change based on the alignment. If Mike is a little tighter, okay, it's a lot less of an angle to take. It's less depth that we're going to get with our step and a little less width. Because all we're trying to do, remember, align those hips up with our target. Our hips are our firepower. That's what we want to deliver and to generate all our force with. So we have to be in position, and that's what the brace step will do. Now that we've established the proper brace angle, we've put ourselves kind of on a track, if you will, to go and get this guy. How we get there, very important. We got to talk about this, because when you tell kids to fire off the ball, and we've all been told that, what does that tell us to do? Kind of sprint, you know? So when we're sprinting, we're taking those long steps, and we talked about that throughout all of our principles of contact videos. We don't want to take long steps out there. You can take long steps when there's a ton of space between you and the defender, but when you're in tight spacing, you don't want to take long steps, because you never know when contact will happen. You hear a myth, there's a myth out there that I've heard, and I know it's been kind of, it resonates to probably a lot of you, is that coaches will say, our second step is when contact happens. Yeah, that could be true. That's not always true. In the case of a wider defender, I don't know how many steps it's going to take, right? So I don't want to define it on the number of steps based on where he is because it's dynamic. So what we want to do instead is we want to fire our feet. You guys watch we have some great drill videos like the fire drill and others that talk about foot fire, one of the most important skills that we can acquire when we're talking about hand-to-hand contact, whether that's defensive players or offensive players in one-on-one situations. Foot fire, critical, because we got to move dynamically. When you see guys getting blown up, pulled, shed, whatever, embarrassing themselves out there, a lot of times it happens because one foot gets caught out up high. And how many times you got to learn that lesson? Hopefully none. Hopefully we can just watch the videos and we'll be able to put this into practice and avoid those problems. But you'll see it if you watch closely. Players, when they take that brace step, I might have a perfect brace angle. I take a long second step. This guy can make options. He's more athletic than me typically. Hate to say it, but it's the truth. These guys can run, they can move laterally. I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to be under control and I want to be in position to win. So to do that, I need to close space quickly, but with short, tight steps, and that's what we call foot fire. So again, I take my brace angle, and I fire my feet. How quickly can I close the space? How quickly can I do that without taking long steps? Think about it like this. How many RPMs can I get? RPMs meaning touches on the ground. That's what foot fire means. I want to close space. I don't want to do it with long steps, with short steps. I've said it too many times now, but you guys get it. I want to close my feet. And again, we're going back to now, how do we get in that position? I want to find myself with feet behind, hands in front when contact occurs. That's a principle of contact. So when we get to that point where we're about to uncoil and fit for contact, feet need to be grounded, okay? Very important. Again, I don't want to strike this guy with one foot in front of the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire our feet. I'm going to walk through it. I'm going to take my brace step. I'm firing my feet to close distance. My feet are now grounded. Then I uncoil. Okay, now once I close that space to the defender, I fire my feet. Okay, I'm in the position of 2-point coil. My feet are behind, my hands are in front. I want to teeter. Remember, we're going to uncoil our hips to explode and deliver hand contact with the defender. So to do that, our teeter, it means we're rocking our weight forward. You know, we don't want to get to the point where we're rolling up onto our toes, but there's that fine line. Just when we feel like we're about on the edge, we're going to draw our knees down and out, hips come through. That's how force is delivered, with our hands in front and our feet behind. Our hips are coming to extension. By our hips coming to extension, worth noting, head comes back, okay? Pelvis, we'll get a tilt of the pelvis. We call it a posterior pelvic tilt, big word. What that means, we want to bring our pelvis and rotate it this way. We're not going to end up engaging with the hyperextended back. That's important to talk about. We're actually going to engage with a neutral spine, where our spine's aligned vertically, okay? And from the side, we call arc strength. Knees come down and out, but you'll notice I'm not hyperextended here, but I'm in an extremely powerful position by rotating that pelvis forward, okay? Next, and we're going to talk about the hand placement. Hand placement when we fit. Everything is the same from other videos you've watched when it comes to the bridge technique, so we won't spend too much time on it. Same points. Rotation of the thumbs. We want to make sure that our elbows are pointed up and down inside the framework of our body. The most critical hand to place when you're blocking kind of inside out is that inside hand. Remember, the defender is working the outside gap. That's usually how that works if he plays upfield. In this case, Mike's maybe working the C or the D gap. He wants to keep that inside hand probably down my midline, but what that does for me, it allows me to get underneath low to high, right on the breastplate. If I can land here, I'm in business. Okay, now that we've kind of got our body in position, we've uncoiled, we got a good fit on the defender, we got to finish this guy off, we got to finish him. And we're going to do that, again, just like all their other run progressions, with closure of the hips. Very important to do so. As I get, if you'll notice here, I'm going to show you a situation. Mike's hand, a lot of these defensive players, defensive ends, they got long arms, right? So sometimes it might be hard. He might get his hand on me first, in particular if he's using the pillar technique. So what the good news is, I can't even reach Mike from here, if you can see, right? But as Mike pushes into me upfield, I can lift low to high and I can kind of attack him underneath that elbow. I need to make sure I'm coming low to high with that fit, but the close is the finish. Watch what I mean by that. I want to get into position here. Mike's going to attack my chest, set up, boom, here. Now what I'm doing is I'm bringing my hips and closing to finish. I want to close that space. Again, it's counterintuitive. The number one thing players are going to do at the youth and high school level, and believe it or not, at the NFL level, you'll see guys get shed because they get greedy with the long steps. Once I get movement, I get contact, now I feel that pressure give. There's that moment in time when you're a blocker and you feel that guy kind of give back, meaning he's losing ground, you're gaining ground, you're pushing him back where you want to. That's the moment where we're most vulnerable, okay? When you feel that guy, move back, that's when he can then pull you and shed you. Remember, like the bull, the matador analogy? We can't have that happen. So how do we prevent that? We control by bringing our hips to his hips, doing that toilet paper walk, clenching our butt cheeks, bringing hips to hips, tight steps, continuing to lift to a point where this guy has absolutely zero leverage or an ability to fight back.